You think you know what real means. You have never worked a day in your life that did not come with a paycheck bigger than most people's yearly salary. You are right. I have had advantages most people never will, but that is exactly why I am here. Because your daughter showed me what actually matters, and I am not going to apologize for falling in love with someone extraordinary. Her father slammed his palm on the table. The glasses rattled. The room went silent. You show up here in your fancy car, your designer shoes, smelling like money we will never touch, and you have the nerve to talk about love. What do you know about loving someone like her? What do you know about struggle, about sacrifice, about working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on? I know that love is not about where you come from. It is about where you are willing to go, and I would go anywhere for her, through anything, against anyone, even you. Her mother's voice cut through the tension like a blade. If you walk out that door with him, do not expect us to be waiting when it falls apart. Amara's chest was heaving. Her hands were trembling. Every eye in that cramped living room was fixed on her. Her father, her mother, her brothers, all waiting for her to choose. And in that moment, she realized the truth. They were not asking her to choose between Julian and them. They were asking her to choose between their approval and her own future. She looked at her mother, at the woman who raised her, at the woman whose opinion had shaped every decision she had ever made, and she said words she never thought she would say. Then I guess you will not be waiting. The door closed behind her. The night air hit her face like a cold slap of reality, and as Julian wrapped his arm around her and led her to the car, Amara did not look back. Not because she did not love them, but because she finally loved herself more. Now, you might be wondering how it came to this. How a woman who had spent her entire life trying to make her family proud ended up walking away from them for a man she had known for less than a year. You might be wondering what kind of love could be worth that kind of sacrifice. What kind of man could be worth that kind of pain? But here is the thing. This story is not really about a man. It is about a woman who discovered that she had been waiting her whole life for permission to be herself. Permission from people who were never going to give it. Permission that she finally realized she did not need. What would you do if the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally rejected you completely? Would you shrink back into the life they designed for you? Would you abandon your dreams just to keep their approval? Or would you walk forward into the unknown, alone if you had to, believing that somewhere on the other side was everything you had ever wanted? Amara Okonkwo chose to walk forward, and by the end of this story you will understand why her family's rejection became the foundation of her greatest triumph. But first, let me take you back to the beginning. To a woman who had nothing but a vision, and a man who saw something in her that she did not even see in herself. Hello, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. David Love Stories. I am so happy to have you here because today's story is one of those rare ones, the kind that grabs you by the heart in the first minute and refuses to let go until the very last word. The kind that will have you laughing, crying, and everything in between. The kind that will stay with you long after the video ends. But before we dive in, I need to ask you a small favor. If you have not already, please tap that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And as we go through this journey together, if something hits you, if a moment moves you, if a line makes you feel something deep in your soul, drop a comment below. Tell me about it. I read every single comment, and your stories inspire me just as much as I hope mine inspire you. Here is my question for you today. Have you ever been rejected by someone who was supposed to support you? Have you ever loved someone your family did not approve of? Have you ever had to choose between loyalty and your own happiness? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your story. Now sit back, relax, and get ready, because what you are about to hear will change the way you think about love, family, and what it truly means to belong. Let us begin. The blueprint spread across her desk like a promise. Blue lines crisscrossing in patterns that most people would see as nothing more than measurements and angles. But Amara saw something else. She saw children laughing. She saw elders sitting on benches in the shade. She saw families gathering around picnic tables for Sunday dinners. She saw beauty in places where the world had only left neglect. Her fingers traced the outline of what would become a community garden in the heart of a neighborhood most investors had abandoned decades ago. This particular lot had been empty for 15 years. Broken bottles, overgrown weeds, a dumping ground for old mattresses and forgotten dreams. But Amara did not see what it was. She saw what it could become. Her office was not really an office at all. It was a repurposed shipping container tucked behind a converted warehouse in the Treem district of New Orleans. The walls were covered in photographs, before and after shots of vacant lots transformed into vibrant gathering spaces, thank you letters from community members written in shaky handwriting and crayon, blueprints for projects that had been completed, and projects that were still just dreams waiting for funding. Her desk was buried under paperwork, grant applications, permit requests, budget spreadsheets that never quite balanced. A cold cup of coffee sat untouched beside her keyboard, forgotten hours ago. She had not slept more than 4 hours in the past 3 days. Her natural locks were pulled back in a simple knot. Her blouse was second-hand, bought from a thrift store on Magazine Street for $12. Her work boots were scuffed and mud-stained from the site visit she had done that morning. Amara Okonkwo did not look like the founder of a growing non-profit organization. She did not look like the woman who had single-handedly transformed 7 vacant lots into thriving community spaces over the past 5 years. She did not look like someone who had been featured in the Times-Picayune and invited to speak at urban planning conferences. She looked tired, but she also looked determined, and that determination had carried her further than Polish ever could. A knock interrupted her concentration. She did not look up immediately. Her fingers kept dancing across the keyboard as she tried to finish the sentence she was composing. An email to a potential funder, the kind of email that could make or break the next 6 months of her organization's survival. "If you are from the permit office," she muttered, "I already submitted the variance request." "Twice, not the permit office," a voice replied. The voice was warm, measured, unfamiliar. It had a richness to it that made her pause, a confidence that was not arrogant, but certain, like someone who was used to being listened to, but not in a way that demanded it. Her eyes lifted from the screen, and for a moment, time seemed to stutter. He stood in the narrow doorway of her shipping container office, tall enough that he had to angle his shoulders slightly to fit through the frame. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored in a way that whispered money without shouting it. The fabric clung to his frame like it had been designed specifically for his body. His tie was a deep burgundy, knotted with precision. His shoes were Italian leather, polished to a shine that had no business existing in this part of town. His skin was deep brown, rich, and warm like mahogany. His jaw was sharp, defined, the kind of jaw that belonged on magazine covers. His eyes were almost amber in the afternoon light streaming through her small window, clear enough to feel like they were asking a question without speaking a word. He looked completely out of place, and yet he did not look uncomfortable. He did not look like he had wandered into the wrong neighborhood. He did not look nervous or superior or apologetic. He looked curious, like he had stepped into exactly where he meant to be. "I am Dr. Julian Beaumont," he said, extending his hand. "I was told you are the person to speak to about the Treem Wellness Initiative." Amara leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. She did not take his hand immediately. Instead, she studied him. The Rolex on his wrist that probably cost more than her entire annual budget. The perfectly groomed beard that framed his face. The way he stood with his weight evenly distributed, relaxed but alert. "That depends," she said finally. "Are you here to help, or are you here to put your name on something?" That made him smile. Not a rehearsed smile, not a polished PR smile, but something genuine that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. "Hopefully both," he said. "But I will settle for being useful." She gestured to the folding chair across from her desk. It was metal, slightly rusted, with a tear in the vinyl seat that she had patched with duct tape 3 months ago. "Have a seat. If it does not collapse under you, maybe we will talk." He eased into the chair with a grace that surprised her. His long legs folded without awkwardness. His posture remained perfect, but not stiff. He looked around the tiny space, taking in the overloaded filing cabinet, the stack of manila folders that served as makeshift bookshelves, the string lights she had hung to make the space feel less industrial. "Nice setup," he said. And it did not sound like mockery. "This used to be a storage unit," Amara replied. "I won it in a turf war with a moving company. Their shipping container is now a community tool library 3 blocks away." His smile widened. "I heard you are the heart of this place." "I am the engine," she corrected. "Hearts are too soft. I keep it running." Julian leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His amber eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made something in her stomach flutter. "Good," he said, "because engines move things. That is what I am here for." She raised an eyebrow. "That is a nice line." Did you rehearse it in the car? He laughed. The sound was rich and deep, filling the small space like warmth. No, but I am glad you liked it. I did not say I liked it. I said it was nice. There is a difference. Then let me try something less nice and more useful, he said, straightening slightly. I am building an outreach initiative, wellness integration for underserved communities. Cardiac screenings, blood pressure monitoring, nutrition education, all delivered in community spaces rather than clinical settings. Amara's expression did not change, but she was listening now. Really listening. Go on, she said. I have been studying recidivism rates for patients discharged from public hospitals, Julian continued. People who get released too early because there are not enough beds. People who end up back in the emergency room within weeks because they do not have follow-up care. They do not have transportation to clinics. They do not have anyone checking on them. And so they get worse, and then they die. From things that should have been caught, from things that could have been prevented. His voice had changed. The polished smoothness had given way to something raw, something personal. I want to change that, he said. I want to build wellness spaces in communities where people already gather. Places where health becomes part of daily life instead of a crisis you deal with when it is already too late. Amara was quiet for a moment. Her arms remained crossed, but her posture had shifted. She was no longer guarding. She was considering. And what does this have to do with me? She asked. I have seen your work, Julian said. Every project. The Claiborne Community Garden, the Lafitte Greenway expansion, the children's play space in Central City. You do not just design landscapes. You create gathering places. You build belonging. She blinked. It was the first crack in her composure. I want to merge what you do with what I do, he continued. Health and community, medicine and belonging. I want people to get their blood pressure checked while their kids play in spaces you designed. I want elders to talk to nurses while they sit in gardens you created. I want wellness to feel like coming home instead of walking into a sterile room where you feel like a number. The silence that followed was not tense. It was full, heavy with possibility. Why me? Amara asked finally. You could do this with the big nonprofits, the ones with infrastructure, PR machines, connections. I could, Julian admitted, but they build for optics. You build for people. He paused, letting the words land. Besides, he added, I heard you have been running on fumes and determination for years. I figured if I could convince the engine, maybe the whole system could run smoother. A silence settled between them again. Different, this time. Charged with something neither of them was ready to name. Tell me what you really want, Dr. Beaumont, she said finally. I want to learn, he replied. I want to understand this neighborhood. What works, what does not. I want to meet the people, listen to their needs. And if you are willing, I want to start by taking you to dinner. There it is, Amara said, a hint of a smile playing at the corner of her lips. No agenda, Julian said quickly. I just think it is hard to build a partnership without conversation. And conversation goes better over food. And food always leads to flirtation. Not always, he said, his voice softening. But I will not pretend I am not intrigued. She stared at him. This tall, polished, confident man who had walked into her world uninvited. Men like him were not supposed to be here. They were supposed to stay in their boardrooms and their country clubs and their hospital wings named after their grandfathers. And when they did venture into neighborhoods like this, they came with cameras and press releases, not questions and curiosity. And yet, here he was, asking to learn, offering to listen, looking at her like she was not a charity case, but a colleague, an equal, something more. I do not date doctors, she said bluntly. That is oddly specific, Julian replied. Because it is a rule. What happened? Did one break your heart? No. I just do not need anyone looking at me like I am some kind of community service project. He leaned back slightly, his expression shifting. Something softer entered his eyes. I am not here to fix you, Amara, he said. Her name in his mouth sounded warmer than she liked. I am here because I want to build something real, he continued. And I think you do too. She did not answer. Instead, she opened a drawer, pulled out a flyer for the next community board meeting, and handed it to him. If you are serious, be there. Thursday night. No cameras, no branding, no speech. Just show up. Listen, And if you can survive 2 hours of Mrs. Thibodeau arguing about parking violations, then maybe we can talk about dinner. He took the paper gently, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment. Thursday night it is, he said. He stood, and suddenly the small space felt even smaller. He was so close she could smell his cologne. Something clean and warm, not overpowering, just present. As he turned to leave, he stopped at the doorframe and looked back at her. I hope I will see you again, he said. You just did, she shot back. His laugh echoed as he walked away, leaving her alone in the shipping container with nothing but the sound of her own racing heart. Amara waited until she was sure he was gone. Then she leaned back in her chair and let out a slow breath. She was not sure what had just happened, but she had not felt this alert in a very long time. Thursday came faster than she expected. The community center was packed. Plastic chairs arranged in rows so tight that shoulders touched, elders in wide hats fanning themselves against the thick Louisiana heat, young mothers bouncing babies on their hips, teenagers leaning against the walls, pretending not to care, but listening to every word. The air conditioner had broken again. Someone had propped open the back door, letting in the sounds of the neighborhood. Children playing on the sidewalk, music from a passing car, the rhythmic thump of a basketball on cracked pavement. Amara stood at the front of the room, clipboard in hand, voice cutting through the static of the malfunctioning microphone. We keep getting overlooked because we stop showing up, she said. If we want access, we cannot afford silence. The city thinks this neighborhood does not matter because we do not fill the seats at council meetings. We do not flood their inboxes with emails. We do not make enough noise. She paused, letting her words settle. But we are here tonight. Every single one of you showed up. And that is how change starts. Not with money, not with connections, with presence, with persistence, with refusing to be invisible. The room murmured in agreement. A few people clapped. Mrs. Thibodeau shouted amen from the third row. Amara's eyes swept across the crowd. And then she saw him. Julian had come alone. No entourage, no clipboard, no assistant taking notes. Just a plain black button-down rolled at the sleeves, fitted slacks, and that watch again. Less of a flex this time. More like something familiar he had forgotten to take off. He sat in the back row, nearly invisible among the crowd. He was not trying to be seen. He was not waiting for recognition. He was simply watching her, fully, like she was the only voice that mattered in the room. She continued speaking, but something had shifted inside her, an awareness of his presence that she could not shake. Every time she made a point, she found herself wondering what he thought. Every time the crowd responded, she wondered if he understood why this mattered. After the meeting, she slipped outside to breathe. The air was heavy with humidity and the scent of approaching rain. Food trucks had lined up along the curb. Fried catfish, roasted corn, thick jambalaya stirred in oversized aluminum pots. The smell made her stomach growl. She had forgotten to eat again. She leaned against the brick wall of the community center and closed her eyes. You did not tell them what they wanted to hear. She did not startle. Somehow she had known he would follow her. I am not in the business of comfort, she replied, without opening her eyes. No. Julian's voice was closer now. You are in the business of truth. She opened her eyes. He was standing a few feet away, hands tucked into his pockets, his expression soft in the streetlight. That room could not keep up with you, he said. You are laying it on thick. I am stating facts. She pushed off from the wall, arms crossed. You followed me. I wanted a moment, he said. You had a moment inside. No, that was public. I wanted something just for me. The words landed heavier than expected. Amara felt them in her throat, in the sudden stillness between them. She studied him. His jaw was tense. His shirt had a slight wrinkle on one side, like he had leaned against something and forgot to smooth it out. There was no performance here, no charm on display. He was just watching her like she was something he did not want to misstep with. You are intoxicating when you speak like that, he said, his voice softening. Her chest tightened. You do not even know me, she said. I know enough to want more. He stepped forward slowly, like he was giving her time to stop him. She did not. He stood close enough now that she could smell his cologne again. Clean, warm, not overpowering, just present, like him. Do not, she whispered. Do not what? Do not make this into something it is not. Julian nodded once. Okay. But then he reached for her face gently, fingertips grazing her jaw. And before she could second-guess it, their mouths met. It was not a rushed kiss. It was not driven by impulse or adrenaline. It was intentional. His lips moved against hers with a patience she was not ready for. His hands did not roam. They stayed right there, one on her cheek, the other on her waist, anchoring her, holding her like a question and an answer all at once. She kissed him back. Her hands fisted the sides of his shirt, pulling him in until their bodies aligned. Heat meeting heat, restraint thinning between them. When they pulled apart, Amara did not speak for a moment. Her breath came out shakier than she liked. That was reckless, she murmured. No, he replied, voice low. That was real. They stood in the quiet buzz of the parking lot, a streetlight flickering above them. The sounds of the neighborhood faded into background noise. In this moment, nothing existed except the two of them and whatever had just been set in motion. Come over, she said suddenly. Julian blinked. Are you sure? No, she said. But come anyway. 30 minutes later, they stood in her apartment. It was small, clean but lived in, books stacked on every available surface, plants on the windowsill that she somehow kept alive despite never being home, a worn couch that had seen better days, a kitchen just big enough for one person to cook without bumping into the walls. The city moved faintly outside her window, but in here, time seemed to still. She poured him a drink. He did not take it, just set it down on the counter and turned to face her fully. Do you always move like this? He asked. I do not move at all, she replied. You are the first shift I have made in years. Julian stepped forward again. No hesitation this time. He kissed her slower, deeper, and when his hands touched her waist, this time they slid beneath the hem of her shirt. She did not stop him. The night unfolded slowly, not with desperation, but with intention. Every touch was a question. Every response was an answer. And by the time the sun began to rise, casting soft light through her thin curtains, something between them had changed. Not just physically, something deeper. She lay against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. I do not know what this is, she whispered. Neither do I, he replied, pressing his lips to her forehead. But I know I do not want it to end. For the first time in years, Amara let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she did not have to carry everything alone. Maybe there was someone who wanted to walk beside her. The weeks that followed blurred into something beautiful. They worked together during the days. Site visits and budget meetings, community consultations and late-night planning sessions. Julian showed up to every meeting she had, took notes, asked residents for their opinions and actually listened to the answers. He remembered names. He remembered stories. He remembered that Mrs. Thibodeau's grandson had asthma and that Mr. Fontenot's wife had passed 3 years ago, and he still brought her flowers every Sunday. Julian remembered everything, and he showed up everywhere. Not with cameras, not with press releases, just with presence. He knelt in mud beside children planting seedlings. He carried lumber alongside men who had assumed he had never done a day of manual labor in his life. He ate jambalaya from paper plates and argued about the Saints' playoff chances with men twice his age. He did not just talk about community, he worked beside it. And somewhere between the planning and the planting, Amara's walls began to crack. It happened in small moments at first, a lingering glance across a crowded room, his hand brushing hers when he passed her a document, the way his eyes softened when she talked about her childhood. One evening, they sat on the tailgate of her truck after a particularly exhausting day. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple. The half-built garden stretched out before them, filled with potential. My family expects me to be someone else, Amara confessed, her voice quiet. Julian turned to look at her, giving her his full attention. They think this, she gestured at the garden around them, is a hobby, a phase. They want me to marry someone respectable, get a real job, stop playing in dirt. And what do you want? He asked. I want to matter, not to them, to the people who have never had anyone fight for them. You already matter, Amara, Julian said softly. You matter more than you know. She looked at him then, really looked, at this man who had walked into her world uninvited and somehow made himself indispensable. I do not date men who see this as charity work, she said quietly. as some kind of noble hobby before they go back to their real lives. This is my real life now, Julian replied. And you are not a project. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met. Her heart stuttered. That sounds like a line. It is not. The kiss that followed was soft at first, tender, but it deepened quickly, fueled by weeks of tension finally releasing. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing harder than before, Julian pressed his forehead to hers. I am not going anywhere, he said. I need you to know that. She wanted to believe him, more than she had ever wanted anything. But somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice whispered warnings. Men like him do not stay. Men like him never stay. She pushed the voice away and let herself fall. The drive to her parents' house felt longer than it should have. The neighborhood she grew up in had not changed. Same cracked sidewalks, same corner stores with faded awnings, same folding chairs on narrow porches, same weight of history pressing down on every block. But Amara felt different. She sat in the passenger seat of Julian's car, her stomach twisted into knots. Her hands would not stop fidgeting. You do not have to be nervous, Julian said, glancing at her. I am not nervous. I am preparing. For what? For them to hate you. He reached over and took her hand. Let them try. The house looked smaller than she remembered. Or maybe she had just grown. A modest 2-story structure with a chain-link fence and a garden that her mother tended religiously. Wind chimes hung from the porch, singing in the afternoon breeze. Her father answered the door. Harold Okonkwo was a big man. Broad shoulders, hands rough from decades of manual labor, a face that rarely smiled, but held deep wells of feeling beneath the surface. His eyes moved from Amara to Julian and back again, assessing, calculating, deciding. So, you are the doctor, he said finally. From the Beaumonts. Yes, sir, Julian replied. The ones with their names on buildings. My grandparents, yes. Her father's jaw tightened. Come inside. The living room was exactly as Amara remembered it. The same family photos on the wall. The same worn couch covered with a crocheted blanket her grandmother had made. The same smell of garlic and onions drifting from the kitchen. Her mother appeared in the doorway. Rose Okonkwo was a small woman with large presence. Her eyes missed nothing. Her opinion carried weight whether you asked for it or not. Amara, she said, pulling her daughter into a tight hug. Then she stepped back and looked at Julian. A doctor, she said flatly. From where? Tulane, Amara answered. His family is well known. I know who the Beaumonts are, Rose interrupted. Everybody knows who they are. What I do not know is what one of them wants with you. Mama, Amara started. Rose held up her hand. Let him answer. Julian stepped forward, his posture respectful but unafraid. Mrs. Okonkwo, I am here because I love your daughter. I am here because she has changed my life in ways I did not know I needed. I am here because I respect what you have built as a family, and I want to be part of it. Love, Rose repeated. That is a big word. Yes, ma'am, it is. Her father spoke from the corner of the room where he had been watching in silence. Come sit. We are having dinner. The table was set with more food than the 5 of them could eat. Fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, macaroni and cheese, red beans and rice. Her mother had cooked like she was preparing for battle. Amara's brothers arrived late. Marcus and Terrell, both taller than their father, both wearing expressions that fell somewhere between suspicious and hostile. So this is him, Marcus said, dropping into his chair without greeting Julian. This is him, Amara replied, her voice tight. Terrell leaned back, arms crossed. He looks expensive. Terrell, Amara warned. I am just saying what I see. Designer suit, fancy watch, the kind of man who probably has a maid to clean up after him. Julian set down his fork calmly. I do not have a maid, he said. I do have a housekeeper who comes twice a month because I work 80-hour weeks and rarely have time to clean. I also cook most of my own meals, do my own laundry, and built my career from the ground up despite my family's money. Is there anything else you would like to know? The table went silent. Marcus leaned forward. You think you know struggle because you work long hours at a fancy hospital. You have no idea what struggle looks like. You are right, Julian replied. I do not know your struggle, but I know loss. I know grief. I know what it is like to watch someone you love die because they did not have access to care that could have saved them. My father died of a heart attack when I was 17. In our kitchen, making Sunday breakfast. The nearest cardiac unit was over an hour away. If we had lived in a different zip code, he might have lived. The energy in the room shifted. That is why I do this work, Julian continued. That is why I met your daughter. She builds spaces that bring communities together. I want to bring healthcare into those spaces, not because it is noble or impressive, but because people are dying for no reason other than geography, and I refuse to accept that. Her mother's expression remained unreadable. Her father chewed his food slowly, eyes never leaving Julian. Pretty words, Marcus muttered. They are not words, Julian said. They are my life. Amara reached under the table and squeezed Julian's hand. He squeezed back. The rest of the dinner passed in tense silence. Plates were cleared. Dessert was served. Small talk was attempted and abandoned. And then came the moment Amara had been dreading. Her mother pulled her into the kitchen while Julian sat politely in the living room, making awkward conversation with her brothers. You think I'm being harsh, Rose said. I think you are being unfair. Unfair. I am trying to protect you. Protect me from what? From being happy. From being loved. Rose's eyes hardened. Men like him do not stay. They play in our world for a while. They feel good about themselves. And then they go back to where they belong. He is not like that. They are all like that, baby. You are just too young to see it. I am 32 years old, Mama. I have seen plenty. You have seen what they want you to see. She grabbed Amara's wrist. I am scared for you. You have built something strong. Do not let it crumble because you wanted a seat at a table that was not set for you. Amara pulled her arm back. He is not trying to shrink me, she said. But you are. She walked back into the living room and took Julian's hand. We should go, she said. Her father stood slowly, blocking the doorway. If you walk out that door with him, he said, voice low and final, do not expect us to be waiting when it falls apart. Amara's throat tightened. And if it does not fall apart, it will. His kind always leaves. Julian stepped forward. With all due respect, sir, you do not know me. You have not tried to know me. You have judged me by my family's money and my last name. But I am not here for your approval. I am here for her, and I will love her whether you bless it or not. Her mother appeared in the kitchen doorway. If you walk out that door with him, Rose repeated, do not expect us to be waiting. The words hung in the air like a sentence. Amara looked at her mother, at the woman who had raised her, at the woman whose opinion had shaped every decision she had ever made, and she said the words she never thought she would say. Then I guess you will not be waiting. She took Julian's hand and walked out the door. She did not look back. The drive home was silent. New Orleans slid past the windows, its lights blurring through the tears Amara refused to let fall. Her hands were trembling in her lap. Her chest felt hollow, carved out by words that would echo for years. Julian did not push her to talk. He simply drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on her thigh, steady and warm. When they finally reached her apartment, she did not move to get out. I am sorry, Julian said. Do not be. I am sorry anyway. That was not fair. What they said, how they treated you. She finally turned to look at him. Her eyes were dry, but red around the edges. They've been waiting my whole life for me to fail, she said. Every choice I made that they did not understand was just more evidence that I would end up alone, broken. Proof that I should have listened. You have not failed anything. She let out a bitter laugh. Try telling them that. Julian pulled over, turned to face her fully, took both of her hands in his. Listen to me, he said. You deserve everything, every good thing, every beautiful thing, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that to you, to anyone who doubts it, including them. What if they never come around? Then they miss out, he said simply. But I am not going anywhere. She let the tears fall then. He held her in the front seat of his car while the city hummed around them, held her until her shoulders stopped shaking, until her breathing steadied, until she could finally look at him without the weight of what she had just lost crushing her. I love you, he said. It was the first time he had said it so simply, not as part of an argument or a defense, just the truth. I love you too, she whispered. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips, and in that moment, Amara made a decision. She would not spend her life waiting for people who did not know how to show up for her. She would walk forward, and she would let herself be loved. The days that followed blurred into something both painful and beautiful. Amara did not answer her mother's texts. She ignored her brother's calls. She blocked her aunt's number after the third passive-aggressive voicemail. The silence from her family was deafening, but she was learning to fill it with her own voice. She threw herself into work with a new kind of fire. The community garden project accelerated. Grant applications that had been collecting dust were suddenly approved. The wellness initiative Julian had proposed began taking shape. Together, they built. And somewhere in the building, Amara found herself. One night, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. "I was never asking for their permission," she whispered. "I was asking for their love," and they could not separate the two. She realized then what had taken her 32 years to understand. She had spent her whole life trying to be enough for people who kept moving the finish line. Every achievement, every success, none of it had ever been enough, not because she was lacking, but because their vision of success had no room for her dreams. She turned off the bathroom light and walked into the living room where Julian was waiting. "I have made a decision," she said. He looked up from his laptop. "I am done waiting for them," she said. "I love them, but I cannot keep bleeding for their approval. So what now? Now I build, with or without their blessing." Julian stood, crossed the room, and pulled her into his arms. "You have been surviving alone for so long," he said softly. "You forgot what it feels like to be chosen without having to audition." Her eyes welled again. He kissed her forehead. "I choose you," he said. "Every day. No conditions. No finish line. Just you. Now, family, I need to pause here because what happens next will change everything. But before we get there, I need to hear from you. Have you ever fallen for someone your family did not approve of? Have you ever had to choose between love and loyalty? Have you ever been rejected by the people who were supposed to support you no matter what? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories inspire me just as much as I hope mine inspire you. And if this story is hitting different right now, if you are feeling something deep in your chest, tap that like button. It helps more than you know. It helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. Trust me when I say you want to be here for what comes next. Now, where were we? 6 months had passed since the night Amara walked out of her parents' house. 6 months of building something beautiful with Julian. 6 months of proving to herself that she did not need permission to thrive. They were in her apartment. It was late. The remnants of a simple dinner sat on the coffee table between them. A half-finished bottle of wine, a documentary playing softly in the background that neither of them was watching. Amara was barefoot, legs tucked beneath her, wearing one of Julian's old t-shirts. It smelled like him, like safety. Julian was watching her the way he always watched her, like she was something he could not quite believe was real. "What?" she asked, catching his gaze. "Nothing, just thinking." "About what?" "About us, about this, about everything we have built." She tilted her head. "You are being weird." He laughed softly. "Maybe." Then he reached beneath the couch cushion. Amara's heart stopped. He pulled out a small black box. No ribbon, no flourish, just velvet in his palm. "I did not want to do this at a restaurant," he said, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "Did not want some cheesy moment on a beach or in front of a crowd." The box opened. Inside was a platinum band with a raw emerald set in the center, unpolished, slightly asymmetrical, but breathtaking in its honesty. "I do not want a moment, Amara," Julian said. "I want a life." Her breath caught. "I want mornings with you ranting about permit denials," he continued. "I want nights where we fall asleep on the couch halfway through a documentary you insisted we watch. I want quiet. I want fire. I want this." He pressed his forehead to hers. Every damn day. Tears were streaming down her face now. She could not stop them. Did not want to. "I still do not have my father's blessing," she whispered. "Then let me bless you with mine." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "I am scared," she admitted. "So am I," Julian replied. "But I still want forever." Her voice was barely audible. Then yes, the ring box dropped to the floor, and the kiss that followed was not tender. It was full of hunger and relief and promise. full of everything they had almost lost, everything they had fought to keep. Later that night they lay tangled together in her bed, breathless and complete. She traced circles on his chest, watching the moonlight play across his skin. "Do you really want forever?" she asked. "I want longer than forever," he replied. "But I will start there." The wedding was not what anyone expected. No grand cathedral, no 500-person guest list, no ice sculptures or champagne fountains, just the garden they had built together. The same community garden where they had walked side by side, where they had planted seeds and pulled weeds, where they had argued about drainage systems and made up in the shade of the tool shed. The string lights they had hung for community events now glowed above rows of mismatched chairs. Neighbors filled those chairs, the same elders and young mothers and teenagers who had watched this garden grow from nothing. Amara stood at the entrance, barefoot in the grass. Her dress was simple, cream-colored silk that fell in soft waves. Her locks were crowned with small white flowers. No veil, no train, just her. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked free. 4 chairs sat empty in the front row, a space reserved for the family that had chosen not to come. Her mother, her father, her brothers, her aunt, none of them were there. Amara had sent invitations, had waited for responses that never came, had checked her phone every day hoping for a text, a call, anything. Silence, always silence. But as she stood at the edge of the aisle, heart pounding, eyes stinging, a warm hand slipped into hers. Julian's mother, Vivienne, stood beside her, elegant as always but with something softer in her eyes. "I will walk you," she said simply. Amara blinked back tears. "You do not have to. I know. But I want to. Welcome to our family." She pressed a pearl bracelet into Amara's palm, the one you were always meant to have. Together, they stepped into the aisle. The guests rose to their feet. Julian stood at the altar, his eyes glistening. He did not cry, but he looked like he had been hit in the chest with something that knocked the air out of him. She walked toward him, step by step, Vivian's steady presence beside her. And when she finally reached him, when Vivienne kissed her cheek and stepped back, Julian took her hands and held them like he was holding his entire future. "You look like truth," he whispered. "And you look nervous," she replied. He grinned through wet eyes. "I am, because I do not want to mess this up." "Then, do not." The vows were simple, no scripts, no microphones, just 2 people speaking directly to each other while their community bore witness. Julian spoke first. "I fell in love with you watching you fight," he said. "Not because I thought you needed saving, but because you did not. You worked yourself to the bone to make this world better, and still you let me in." His voice cracked. "You are the strongest woman I have ever met. You are fire, and I promise to never dim you, only fuel you." Amara had to blink rapidly to see through her tears. Then she spoke. "I did not trust you at first. I thought your world would crush mine, that I would have to bend to fit into something smaller than what I had built." She paused, but instead, you made room. You did not ask me to shrink. You expanded, and now I get to love someone who loves me not in spite of who I am, but because of it. She squeezed his hands. "I am still me, still loud, still stubborn, but now I am seen, and I am safe." They did not wait for permission to kiss. They leaned into each other at the same moment, mouths meeting in a kiss that was slow, certain, real. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, and for the first time in her life, Amara did not feel like she was performing. She felt like she was finally home. "Now, family, we are deep into this story, and I know your heart is full right now, but I need to tell you something. This story is not over. What comes next is going to test everything Amara and Julian have built. It is going to show you what love really looks like when it is pushed to its limits. If you are feeling this story right now, if you are invested in these 2 people and their journey, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to know that being rejected does not mean being unworthy. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join this family. We tell stories that stay with you. Now let us continue. The first year of marriage was everything Amara had hoped it would be. They built routines, morning coffee together before the world demanded their attention, evening walks through the neighborhood where they had fallen in love, arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes that always ended in laughter. Their professional collaboration deepened. The community gardens expanded into a network across the city. Julian's wellness initiative launched in 3 neighborhoods, with plans for more. They were not just building a marriage, they were building a legacy. But life does not always cooperate with plans. The pregnancy test was positive on a Tuesday. Amara sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the 2 lines that had appeared in seconds. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. 1,000 emotions crashed through her at once. Joy, terror, disbelief, hope. She was going to be a mother. Julian found her that evening, still sitting on the bathroom floor, the test in her hand. He did not need to ask what it said. The look in her eyes told him everything. He dropped to his knees in front of her and kissed her stomach before she could even speak. "We did this," he whispered. "We made this. You are not mad." He laughed, a sound full of disbelief. "Mad, Amara. I have wanted this longer than I have let myself admit." He looked up at her, eyes shining. "We are going to be parents." For the next several months, they dreamed together. They painted a nursery yellow, bought books on parenting, argued about names until they were both laughing so hard they could barely breathe. Imagined who this child would become. Julian kissed her growing stomach every night before sleep, whispered good morning to their baby every day before work, played classical music through headphones pressed against her belly. Amara had never felt more loved, or more scared. She had learned long ago not to trust happiness, not to let herself believe that good things would last. Her family had taught her that. Life had reinforced it. But every time the fear crept in, Julian was there, steady, certain, unwavering. "We are going to be amazing parents," he would say. And slowly, she began to believe him. It happened in the middle of the night, a sharp pain that woke her from a dead sleep. She sat up in bed, disoriented, confused, and then she felt it. Warm, wet, too much, blood. Julian was awake in seconds. He did not panic, did not freeze. He wrapped her in a blanket, lifted her in his arms, and carried her to the car. "Hold on," he said. "Just hold on." He drove through red lights, pulled up to the emergency room entrance, carried her inside while shouting for help. The next hours blurred together, white coats moving in waves, machines beeping in patterns she did not understand, nurses whispering in voices too low to hear. And then the doctor. "We are so sorry." 3 words, the smallest sentence that destroyed the largest dream. Amara lay in the hospital bed, arms wrapped around her stomach as if she could hold on to what was already gone. The sheets were white, stained red. Her body was still. Her arms were empty. Julian sat beside her. He held her hand. He did not speak. There was nothing to say. She had lost something she did not even know she had been waiting her whole life for. The days that followed were gray. Amara moved through the house like a ghost, showering by routine, eating when Julian put food in front of her, sleeping in fits and starts, always waking to the same emptiness. The nursery door stayed closed. She could not bear to look at the yellow walls. Julian tried to fill the space with small comforts. Tea on the nightstand, her favorite blanket draped over the couch. His presence, always, steady and warm. But she could not feel any of it. She was lost somewhere inside herself, wandering through grief too deep for words. One night, Julian woke to the sound of something crashing. He found her on the bathroom floor, knees pulled to her chest, forehead pressed to the tile, shattered glass around her where she had knocked a cup off the counter. She was sobbing, the kind of crying that came from somewhere primal, somewhere broken. "I am not whole," she whispered when he gathered her in his arms. "I failed." "You did not fail." "I did. My body failed. I failed you. I failed our baby." He held her tighter. "Listen to me," he said, voice cracking. "Your body did not fail. Life is just crueler than we deserve sometimes. But you did not fail. You could never fail." She looked up at him, eyes swollen, face wet. "I cannot give you what you want," she said. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I did not fall in love with your womb, Amara. I fell in love with you." That night, he carried her to bed, peeled off her clothes with gentle hands, tucked her under the covers like she was something precious. She reached for him then, not from passion, not from desire, but from need. a desperate need to feel connected when everything else felt lost. He understood. He held her, moved with her, slow and careful, not to escape the grief but to share it. When they finally stilled, breathless and tearful, she lay against his chest and whispered, "I still want forever with you." He kissed the top of her head. "I am not going anywhere." Grief did not vanish, but slowly, carefully, it changed shape. Amara returned to work, at first just for an hour or two, then half days, then full days. Julian stood beside her through every setback, every bad day, every moment when the weight felt too heavy to carry. They focused on each other, on their work, on the love they had built before the loss, and somewhere in the rebuilding, something began to grow again. A year after the miscarriage, Amara noticed the signs returning. The exhaustion, the sensitivity to certain smells, the dizziness that came without warning. She took a test alone in the bathroom, hands trembling. 2 lines appeared in seconds. She stared at them for a long moment, afraid to hope, afraid to believe, but also, for the first time in months, feeling something other than emptiness. She went to the doctor before telling Julian, wanted to be sure, needed to know. The doctor smiled at her from across the desk. "You are pregnant," she said, "and everything looks strong." This time, when Amara told Julian, she let herself cry tears of joy. This time, she let herself believe. Labor came fast. One moment, they were in the backyard, laughing about something trivial. The next, Amara's glass slipped from her hand, and a sharp cramp twisted through her. Julian did not hesitate. He lifted her in his arms, loaded her into the car, and drove like the world was ending. If these babies could hold on until we hit the freeway, Amara gritted through her teeth, that would be nice. Julian glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Babies. The ultrasound had confirmed it months ago. Twins. A boy and a girl. The delivery was a blur of pain and pushing and praying. And then, finally, 2 cries pierced the room. "Baby girl," the nurse announced. Seconds later, another cry. Louder, more insistent. "Baby boy," the doctor confirmed. Both healthy, both perfect. Julian was crying openly, not caring who saw. He kissed Amara's forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "We did it," he whispered. "No," Amara replied, voice hoarse but strong. "We lived it." The twins were named that evening. Maya Grace Beaumont, for the mother Amara wished she had. Marcus Julian Beaumont, for the legacy they wanted to build. They were small and perfect and loud, and they changed everything. The reconciliation came when Amara least expected it. An envelope arrived without a return address, her mother's handwriting on the front. Inside, a single sentence. "You look happy. I hope you are still my daughter. Mama." Amara stared at the letter for hours. She did not know what to do with it. This tiny olive branch after years of silence. This whisper of hope after so much pain. Julian sat beside her on the couch, one twin asleep in his arms. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I do not know." "You do not have to decide now." "I know." But something had shifted. A door that had been locked was now slightly open. She texted her mother that night. "Can we talk?" The response came 2 hours later. "If you are ready, come home." The drive to the 7th Ward felt like traveling through time. Julian drove with one hand on the wheel, the other holding hers. The twins slept in their car seats, peaceful and unaware. The house looked the same, smaller somehow, but familiar. Her father answered the door. His hair was grayer, his shoulders slightly stooped. But when he saw her, something in his face softened. He did not speak, just opened his arms. She walked into them. For a long moment, they stood on the porch, father and daughter, holding each other for the first time in years. Then he stepped back and looked at Julian, who stood behind Amara with a twin in each arm. "You still love her?" Harold asked. "With everything I have." A long look, a heavy silence. Then Harold nodded. "Come inside." I made ribs. The reunion was not perfect. There were awkward silences, unspoken tensions, old wounds that still ached. But there was also something new. Her mother held her grandchildren for the first time and cried. Her brother sat across from Julian and actually listened when he spoke. Her aunt stayed in the kitchen, but her sharp comments were absent. They were trying. It was messy. It was uncomfortable. It was incomplete, but it was a start. Before they left, Rose pulled Amara aside. "I failed you," she said simply. "I was scared, and my fear made me small." Amara looked at her mother, at the woman who had shaped her, wounded her, loved her imperfectly. "I know," Amara said, "but I am here anyway." Rose's eyes filled with tears. "You built something beautiful, even when we did not believe in it." "I know. I am sorry." Amara took her mother's hands. "I do not need you to be sorry. I just need you to show up, not perfectly, just consistently." Rose nodded, wiping her eyes. "I will try. That is all I am asking." The drive home was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. Full instead of empty. Julian reached for her hand. "You okay?" Amara looked out at the passing lights of the city. "I think so," she said. "I think I finally am." Years later, Amara stood at the window of the house she and Julian had built together. The twins played in the backyard garden she had designed just for them. Maya chased Marcus around the tomato plants. Marcus screamed with laughter and ran faster. Julian came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I was thinking about how far we have come, and how far we still want to go." She smiled, leaning back into his warmth. "Exactly. The community garden where they married still bloomed every spring. Children played where the ceremony had happened. Elders sat on benches donated in memory of those who did not live to see it. Both families gathered for Sunday dinners now, awkward sometimes, imperfect always, but present. Amara's mother had learned to ask questions instead of giving lectures. Her father had learned to say he was proud. Her brothers had learned that Julian was not the enemy. It had taken time, but they had gotten there. One evening, after the twins were asleep and the house was quiet, Amara sat on the porch with Julian. The stars were out. The city hummed in the distance. "You know what I realized," she said. "What?" "I was never waiting for someone to save me. I was waiting for someone brave enough to walk beside me." Julian turned to look at her, his eyes soft in the dim light. "And did you find him?" She leaned in, hands cupping his face, and smiled. "I found everything." They kissed under the stars, slow and sweet and full of promise. And somewhere in the night, Amara felt the truth settle into her bones. She was never just part of someone else's story. She was the fire that lit her own. She had survived rejection and rebuilt from its ashes. She had loved fearlessly, even when fear made sense. She had chosen herself when no one else would. And now she stood in the life she had built, surrounded by love she had earned, glowing with a light that no one could ever take away. She was never the shadow. She was always the flame. And now she burned brighter than ever. Now, family, if you are still here with me, I know this story hit different. I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment below saying, "I am the fire." Let me know this story moved you. Let me know if you have ever had to fight for your own belonging. If you have ever been rejected by people who were supposed to support you, hit that like button. If Amara's journey reminded you that healing is not about going back, it is about choosing forward, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Every time you engage, it helps us tell more stories of love, strength, and second chances. You are the reason we do this. And remember this, your story is not over, your fire is not out, and the people who rejected you yesterday might celebrate you tomorrow, but you do not need their celebration to succeed. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being part of this beautiful family. This is Mr. David Love Stories, reminding you that love always finds a way, and so will you. Until next time.